Welcome everybody, Ruthie Renee with Quantum Field Trips. I am here today with Amy Brooke Granadino, and she is also a certified clinical hypnotherapist and a coach, and she has some fun stuff to talk about. She specifically works with all kinds of things, but specifically geeks out on sexual stuff, sexual healing, trauma, the mind, how it all goes together, expression, and we're going to just have so much fun talking about this. Amy Brooke, tell me, is Brooke a middle name, a last name, what do we call you, Amy?
So that's been a story my entire life from the day I entered kindergarten. My given name was actually Amy Brooke, but my mom chose that order because Brooke Amy sounded weird.
Oh.
So that's the story I heard. I've gone by Brooke my entire life, but in the past couple of months, actually, I went through this process where I really had to hone in on who I was, and I felt like that integration would be fully complete when I integrated both of my names. So I hyphenated Amy Brooke and kind of brought that into my being and into the way I introduce myself. So I used to be just Brooke, and people who know me from my past will only know me as Brooke, but I'm pulling that Amy in and really owning it and being fully me.
That is so cool, and something I happen to resonate with as Ruthie and Renee. That's so fun. I didn't know that about you before we met and got on this call. Do you, just out of curiosity, do you know the meaning behind Amy and Brooke?
Well, Brook is a nature term, right? It's like the
Flow.
stream or a river, right? And it's as a Pisces, I love that. But Amy actually comes from the same root word, Latin root word amo, which is Spanish for love. So Amy actually means beloved.
Oh, wow. Beloved, the beloved who flows.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. That's so fun. So before I dive in with a gajillion questions, tell us a little bit about your story. Who is Amy Brooke?
I grew up in a small town in Wyoming. That's just a fabulous place to grow up. I had a really beautiful, idyllic childhood, really. I thought I was just a normal kid, right? And then I just started choosing different ways of being, kind of forging my own path from a pretty young age. I graduated from high school, and my first job was actually, well, my first job after high school was driving a haul truck at a phosphate mine, which was a big deal for me, right? I mean, I was just this little tiny short person and jumping one of those trucks.
Wow.
And yeah, right. And
How tall are you?
5'2".
Oh,
And the
and
trucks
I
actually
have a
didn't fit
hard
me
time with
super
an
well.
SUV.
Right. So it didn't fit me super well. So I moved on, from that to other duties in the mine. Not long after that, I decided to kind of drop everything in life, and I moved to Latin America and did volunteer work in orphanages. And that just kind of set the tone for the rest of my life. Like, I just decided that maybe I wasn't going to do the whole checklist, if that makes any sense. Like the things we think are important in life. Not long after that, I went to massage therapy school. I became a massage therapist. And then I got married and had a large number of children. I have 7 living, and then I lost one daughter at birth about 14 years ago. And well, exactly 14 years ago. We just finished celebrating her birthday. And so there was this massive jump for me into living in this space where there was so much demand on my body, nursing and delivering babies. All my babies were born at home. There's another one of my little oddities that I decided to forge my own path. All of my babies were born at home except for a few circumstantial shifts that had to happen. Yeah, I mean, that was and I've been submersed in motherhood ever since. I was a homeschool mom for a decade or a little bit more. I was also incredibly unsafe and unhappy in the relationship that I was in. So I, about 5 years ago, decided that I was done. I filed for divorce, and actually it was only this year that the divorce was finalized. So it was a very, very long process. It's been super interesting, the shifts that have happened. When I first got divorced, I had a number of mental illness diagnoses. I'd been diagnosed, excuse me, with a number of things that were pretty severe. I mean, I was diagnosed with ADD and autism even. The way I decided to deal with that was I was either going to shrink off the planet and not exist. I'd lived in isolation for a very long time before that. So the only way I could go further down was to shrink into nothingness. And when I faced that, like the lowest of lows, I finally decided, well, the only place I can go is into the unknown. I went from being, again, socially isolated completely, literally stuck in fight or flight all the time, right? Just in this space of feeling unsafe all the time, really, really struggling relationships with my children, really struggling, and no relationships outside of that. I've done a number of therapies. I won a free hypnotherapy session. I'd never done hypnotherapy before. Kind of accidentally, just by commenting on a post, not realizing it was a contest, right? I commented on a post and won a free hypnotherapy session. And I got into the session. It was fabulous. And at the time,
if I ask who was the hypnotherapist?
Chris Parker.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
He and I live pretty close to each other.
And so, also to just let other people know that don't know who Chris Parker is, Chris Parker is the son of Dennis Parker, who trained me as a hypnotherapist and is now running the hypnotherapy school in far west Utah. So that's a good one to win a free session with.
Right, exactly. So I did that, and Chris was generous enough to do trades with me. And we continued working together for a short time. And one day I walked in and I said, this is what I want to do. I had considered jumping back into massage therapy, and it had been so long that the state of Utah wasn't willing to continue my license. I told Chris, this is what I want to do. Who teaches this? And of course, like you just said, his response was my dad. Right. So I was the last class that graduated before Dennis passed away. And
what a blessing.
Feel really honored and grateful that I was able to experience that.
Wow, I'm so grateful that, and Chris is wonderful, and of course they use such a vast library of sessions that have been recorded from Dennis. So in case anybody else is watching going, oh my gosh, I want to do this too, just reach out to me and I'll tell you how you can get in touch with Chris and still. And now you made my nose red. Oh, but so amazing that you had the opportunity to work directly with him before he went
He's a
with angels. So 7 children and 8 childbirths with an abusive, not that it matters, sexual, physical, emotional, it's all abuse. And body keeps the score. And so it's no wonder you landed in illness, mental illness, physical illness. And that wasn't the end. You could have shrunk. I love that you shared that. I could have just disappeared. Many people do. And it's so sad and it breaks my heart. And I've been there where not only did I want to shrink, I would desperately pray and beg every day, could you just please take me home, take me home. And then something happens. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And that led you to hypnotherapy. And now here you are taking clients, coaching, and using your skills with hypnotherapy and helping other women find their way. Well, or men too. What's your niche?
I do on a limited scale. I mostly work with women in this particular framework. I do take a couple of male clients, ones I know personally, normally, or ones that I really feel drawn to, like I could really work with. I find that a lot of men reach out to me, and I don't know what that means. I find that I have a way of helping them connect in a certain way. I don't know if it's the way I communicate, but I do. And so I've always kept that in my mind, like one day something may open up where I might have this epiphany of how I can really delve in and help in those circumstances. Although one of the things that's super powerful that I don't think we give enough credence to or credit is that when a woman heals herself, right? Like when a woman discovers who she really is, her radiance flows out of her and men wake up.
Yeah.
They do. They wake up to their purpose. When a woman discovers her purpose, they wake up to theirs. Hopefully, in time, and it's already happening on a smaller scale, but hopefully in time, like that will grow and progress to where we have women waking up all over the world and men waking up with them.
Yes. You help the women, and the women help the people in their community, in their surrounding circle of influence.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to put it.
Nice.
The honest truth is men have excelled in what they do, right? Look at the world around us. Look at the world. Look at this conscious, like this physical realm that we've created. You drive into a city and it's phenomenal, right? So men really have, the masculine, I should say, like that masculine piece, because it's not just men who have built all that, right?
Right.
But it's that masculine piece that has built this massively beautiful thing. And I think right now it's women's time to add the soul back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time to take masculine and feminine and bring them back together. The yin and the yang, the all encompassing, which I'm starting to see in all kinds of things. I have my biggest thing lately is it with my clients is teaching the gift is inside the problem. The problem is just the packaging to give you the gift that's inside, and sometimes the packaging is really hard to get through, and sometimes it's so hard that you just throw it out altogether and you never grasp what the gift is, but it's all there. Everything is together.
So Ruthie, the way that I teach that, it's similar, but metaphorically, I teach it as if there's a seed and the seed is the packaging, right? And the gift is the tree inside. And all the circumstances that the seed needs to become itself, right? Because it's always been a tree, even as a seed, right? It is a tree. All the things that it needs to be able to become that towering oak tree is already inside of it. All it has to do is let the circumstances of life penetrate the seed to soften it. And so really that's so I teach is to move into a space of trust and softening so that penetration, the water can penetrate from the outside in to soften it. And then the tree really does the real work of penetrating out of that seed, breaking through and become who it really is, right? Because that seed, who we think we are, right? Our conscious beliefs about who we are, right? So much of that is just programming.
Yeah.
That unconscious who we are that we've piled layer and layer and layer upon ourselves, and it's breaking through all of those layers and out into becoming this massively beautiful bearing tree. And so yeah, I totally hear you on that. That metaphor is so very powerful.
I love it, and you'll have to tell me if there's something else in there, but as I'm listening to you speak, I'm thinking, oh, the softening. You have to have the soil to grow, and that's softening the heart and breathing, allowing the breath to come in and sink into that acceptance of what is, so that you can then uncover and open to grow what's already been there all along. I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you.
And another aspect, of course, that's particular to what I teach and how I work is there's also the idea that in dealing with sexuality, the tissues, like our vaginal tissues, actually become very tense. And because we're holding on to trauma, we're holding on to this emotion, there's this protective measure, right? And so a lot of the work is softening the heart. A lot of the work is softening the way we think, because there's so much rigidity in our thoughts. There's rigidity in the tissues. There's rigidity in our heart, like we put walls around our heart, right? There's so all these layers. It's really rigidity. It's the outside of the seed, right?
Yeah.
But what's inside of the seed is actually very vulnerable and soft. Everyone knows that a tiny plant is just super vulnerable, even if it's a massively beautiful tree. But the tree over time develops its own strength within itself. Like that trunk becomes a very powerful, strong thing. Yeah. And so it's not, I think people think that once they become soft, then they're vulnerable to everything that happens in the world, right?
Right.
So there are layers of truths that allow us to sink into trust. There are layers of truths that allow us to sink into, we call it surrender, right?
Yeah.
But nobody ever finds why we need to surrender. The way I teach in my coaching and in my course is that has to happen so we can be penetrated. Okay. Think about what happens during conception. There's penetration that happens. Like the sperm has to penetrate the egg.
Yeah.
And if the egg isn't soft and penetrable, then life never happens. And that exists, that truth, when you take that truth and apply it everywhere else in life, we have to be able to be surrendered so that we can be penetrated by life. Because all the experiences here are meant to grow us.
Yeah.
And it's a judgment of them, right? It's our judgment of them saying, no, I don't want that creates the rigidity.
Right.
We can trust that the penetration is always for our good, whatever comes. Like you said, it just is.
Right. It
When
can
we,
be. It has the potential. Law of polarity. If there's the good, there's potential for the bad,
yeah.
if you want to call it good and bad. But it's how we show up, how we choose to see it and step into that.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. I'm thinking as I'm listening to you, I have a friend who teaches, she's a physical therapist that specifically works with women. And so often, and who knew this was going to take a turn here, but so often women with sexual trauma, because of the fear that we hold on to, we put up our armor and there's that rigidity. And then it's a physical part of us. And so then, even when you are with a person who is safe, your body remembers the trauma and it hurts. That intimacy hurts, and you just don't, you just want to turn it off. And that's where we were designed for pleasure. And so it breaks my heart when somebody goes forward, either by themselves or with the union of another partner, to not be able to experience that in full. So I would, with your past, your experience and what you do, I would absolutely encourage those women that might hear this to open enough to just be curious and talk to Amy and work on do you do discovery calls? Do you do initial appointment? You do okay. So then at least a discovery call to see, could it be possible that my body could open up and soften to experience the beauty that other women take for granted sometimes?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the thing that's
Mm.
that's surprising and beautiful, and um, this is my favorite thing. And I think this is really when we all feel like, we feel like we have something to share with the world, right? And everyone has their own unique, beautiful thing. And I think mine is this, that when you reconnect back to your sexual self, it's not just about sexuality.
Mhm.
What you're tapping into is the pure essence of who you are. So the way I teach in my course and in my coaching is that there is no defining line between sexuality and spirituality. They are one and the same. And so many of us have grown up with the sexual repression, with the belief that one will damage the other, that
Mhm.
our sexuality will ruin or destroy our spirituality. And so many of us are trying to keep this spirituality thing so pristine that we're repressing the sexual, and we don't realize that we're actually repressing our spiritual selves as we repress our sexual selves. So allowing both of those exist as they are, because that's the way we were created, right? Like this is who we are, to really embrace that idea of this is the reality. The reality is I have a sexual self and I have a spiritual self. And the more I dive into one, the more I open up the other. Um, Although if we try to dive into our spirituality and our sexuality begins to open up, then we close that door really quickly if we've been trained to do so, if we've been taught that that's dangerous to our spirits.
Yeah,
For me, any sexual act that's made fully consciously, like you're doing it with the conscious idea of growing, can't be damaging to us.
I agree. And so needed in the world. And I also would say there's a flip side of that. People that may be really in tune, in touch, and love their sexuality somehow put spirituality aside. Like it doesn't
Because they've been
belong
told
in
they're
there.
bad.
Exactly. Exactly. And if we just have that awareness, start to question. I love like question, 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 question all the time. If it doesn't feel right, it might probably there is something that isn't quite right about it. And you just keep diving down deeper until you understand how everything's connected. And was this something that you decided that you didn't want? If so, why? And or who told you? And who are they to tell you? Because
Right.
for me, I connect with God, and God is the one that defines and leads. And even if it, mm, I don't know if I want to go there, but even if it's in the scriptures, scriptures can be interpreted and translated wrong, and what was the context?
Yeah.
So still question, 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 and be receptive.
So can I give you an example of that?
Oh yes, please.
So part of the work that I do actually stems out of something that I understood in scripture, that I discovered in scripture a long time ago. And I don't think anyone up until this point has ever agreed with me. But there
I'm the
is,
first.
I still cling to it because I'm still diving in and searching. But at the end of Ephesians chapter 5, there's a comparison made between Christ and the church and marriage, or, the relationship between a man and a woman. And what it basically says is that Christ's job is to leave the church without spot, without blemish, without wrinkle. And then it clearly states that that's a man's job for a woman. And there's this idea that, well, I'm not here to fix you, right? That's a really strong message in our society right now. Like, it's not my job to fix you. But at the very end of that verse, Paul says something like, well, this is the great mystery. And it has something to do with Christ and the church. And he just kind of leaves it as this like really mysterious thing that he's talking about that nobody ever really questions. Like, what's the mystery, right? And what I think the mystery is, and this is what I've discovered for myself, is that in a relationship, when a woman is in a space where when she's in a container where she's set apart and where she's also held, a woman can surrender. Okay. And when she surrenders, what happens is all of that softness and that surrender will allow the things that she's holding on to, her limiting beliefs, her fears, her old yucky emotions, her connections to difficult situations, her traumas, all of those things within that sexual experience. Because what you have is you have an opening, right? But you also have this incredible power that moves in, the power of turn on, the power of orgasm, right? So when that magic is happening, it softens enough that all of those traumas come out. So in the process of marriage, it's like in the scripture, this is what it's teaching us. This is the mystery of how to heal within the context of a relationship. Now, it doesn't take two in a relationship. A woman can do this for herself. But within the context of a relationship, a woman can be made holy without spot. Like, she can be cleansed and purified and healed of all of those things, not intentionally. It's literally through pleasure. How beautiful is that? Like, that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever looked at, and just sat in awe as I looked at it, because we think healing is hard and we think, I'm not here to fix you. But what a reframe.
Right.
What a reframe to look at this relationship, this sexual relationship between two people, or just this one person, right? And be able to look at that and say, oh my gosh, all we have to do is move into this space of vulnerability, right? Create space for that to happen. And all this healing just magically happens. And it really is. That's the way we were framed. I mean, that's the way we were created to heal. Um, that's one of the most powerful things that I love to teach, is that healing doesn't have to be hard, and that it really is about being open to penetration, open to softening, and all of those pieces. So yeah, I mean, like you said, just pulling in this belief that I found years and years and years ago, and then finally came to this, seeing it this way and going, oh, now I figured out the mystery. Now I'm going to move on to something else.
I love it. And I absolutely, I open it up and I'm going to have to read it myself, but I totally see where you're coming from. And there's even, I took a class from a woman, Rebecca Stay. She's got her doctorate in Judaism something or another. So she taught Old Testament classes, and she talked about how the woman's body is you can draw it out very similar to the temple in the Old Testament, and going to the veil and asking for permission to go through, and all kinds of beauty. There's so many types and symbolism in for those who have eyes to see and those who have ears to hear. And it doesn't have to be hard. I'm going to take that piece you said, because I say it over and over and over again. I'm so glad you said it. It doesn't have to be hard. We go through pain all of the time here on earth. Childbirth, yes, there's pain, and there's so much pleasure in it. And I have, hopefully my husband's okay with me sharing. He knows I overshare all the time. There is nothing that I can think of more connecting and profound than when you come together, union, and you allow open that penetration, and it breaks. You feel the walls break. And I'm not this freaky all the time, but I have wept, sobbed in his arms afterwards, where I can feel all of the past trauma coming up and releasing, and the bond, and he's right there. And so that bond is richer and deepened because I have allowed that vulnerability and connectiveness and all of those things. And man, if you don't have that in your relationship, aspire to have it, expect it, and look for it, and watch for it, and allow it, and soften. Like you said,
And
you
learn
have,
the principles and how to create it.
yes. So tell me about your course.
So my course is called Reclamation. It's really just the idea that women are, it helps women to reclaim their bodies, their sovereignty over their bodies, reclaim their relationships, reclaim themselves in their relationships, all the places that women have the capacity to reclaim. And it's an interesting thing, because as I was in a meeting not too long ago, and they were talking about creating revolutions.
Mm-hmm.
We're all here to change the world. We're all here. It was a group of entrepreneurial women, and I was sitting with it afterwards, and I went, what's more powerful than a revolution is a reclamation.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to fight you for this piece of land. This land is mine. I will simply walk out onto it, and I will drive my stake into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will stand here and I will own it. I don't have to fight for it. Right. So the idea of reclamation is simply that, like, I don't have to fight for a different kind of relationship. I don't have to fight to heal. I don't have to fight any of those battles. Like, this isn't a battle. This is just me saying yes to me.
I
So
love that.
the course in and of itself is a 9-week course. It includes, it's really just a lot of information, and then some really, really simple practices. And I say it over and over again in some of the videos within the course, is you're going to hate this. You're going to hate this course because it's so simple. Right? We really have developed the idea that the more complex it is, and the more technique it takes, all of those pieces, right, the better. And it's really not true. Like I've simplified it down almost to the point where it's going to drive, people who want like ABC, but that's the rigidity.
Yes.
You see that? And so it's really, it helps women soften in so many areas on so many levels. What I love, and the foundation for how I teach everything, is that inside of us is a compass, right? And that comes from this deep inner knowing about who we are, that our unconscious, super conscious, right? And when we follow that, it leads us to pleasure. Women especially thrive on pleasure. But what happens is at one point in our lives, most of us when we're really young, we switch from pleasure to duty.
Mm.
And when we switch from pleasure to duty, we start depending on outside sources of what we're supposed to do, of being told who we are, of what we're supposed to like. And
Yeah,
so it's
you're a
it's
good
it's
girl. Good girls don't do this. And yeah,
yeah, there's a million examples of
we
how that can
serve
play
and
out.
we care for and we mother and we all of those things. I hear that come up in the language of clients and friends, family, the world all the time. I have to
Yes.
instead of I choose. I want.
Yes, exactly. And I get a lot of backlash. People are like, well, if I only did what brought me pleasure, I wouldn't accomplish anything. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You do the exact same things. It's how you do it
Yeah.
and why you do it. I wash the dishes every
Behind
single day. I'm a single mom with 4 kids at home. I wash the dishes every single day,
it.
right? Pleasure is when I wash the dishes and I'm mesmerized by the rainbows and the bubbles because I'm present in
Yes.
the moment,
And you're
right?
grateful that you have water. You don't have to go outside and pump it, and it just comes, and you have heat, and you have clean dishes for your babies, and so you don't have illness. All of the gratitude, and it's the energy behind what we do.
It is. It is. And if we do it out of pleasure, it fuels us in a
Mhm.
way that it's mind-blowing the way my life has changed when I recognize this difference between duty and pleasure. When we let go of it, all those voices just tone down and disappear. And then you're just left with this present flowing state of really, I still accomplish the same things I have had to accomplish as a mom. Like I'm still vacuuming my floors and washing
Right?
dishes and doing my laundry, but it just feels so different.
Yeah. Well, that is so important. So important for us to, well, I mean, we don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You can choose to feel like you have to live in angst and pressure and have tos and judgment and all of that. You can, or you can enjoy life, and working with Amy Brooke is one way to find it. It's so fun. And oh gosh, before I forget, I just want to share with people to keep dialed in, because very soon we will have be working together and a few other hypnotherapist friends, and we're going to have a podcast called Ask a Hypnotherapist. So you can start sending me questions, or if you're watching this through Amy Brooks' lines of communication, start asking questions and we will answer them. We're going to be live on numerous platforms. We'll keep you in the loop. Just keep watching and asking, and we'll let you know when it happens. But I'm so excited for that panel that we'll be able to share, and people can ask questions as they come up. Because I don't know about you, but even today I was having a conversation with somebody I knew well and mentioned something that I share in my course, and just offered, hey, if you want to pop in, I'll let you come and take a look at it. And after knowing me for how long, and she still was unsure. It's like, not sure about hypnotherapy and what that's going to do with my relationship with God. And it might just, thank goodness she had the awareness to that it might be just the things that I've learned over time. Yes, that is it. There's so many misconceptions about everything in the world, right? Well, our sexuality, our not just hypnotherapy or religion or there's always misconceptions because people get confused. I do
Right.
too.
Do you have time for me to share a little bit about something about that?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. So one of the things that I think is really powerful to understand, I mean, as hypnotherapists, we're like, oh gosh, hypnosis, like it gets totally demystified, right?
Hmm.
And that's the problem is this there's it needs to be demystified. It needs to be broken down. So really all hypnosis is when your conscious mind tunes into the inside of you instead of being tuned into the outside of you, correct?
Hmm.
So there are different ways that we do that. Meditation is simply hypnosis that's quiet.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy is hypnosis where you go in and there's an actual conversation between your conscious and unconscious minds. So you can learn something just like you're paying attention to the words in a book to
Hmm.
learn something new. You're paying attention to your inner world to learn something new. Even change the story. Like you can even rewrite the story while you're down there, right?
Right.
So that's really the power in hypnosis. But another thing that's really interesting is that sex is the exact same thing. Because when we okay, not when we're in our heads, right? Like there's a level of
You mean not when you're looking at the time?
dormant.
Like,
Yeah,
can you,
yeah,
like 2 minutes? Is that good?
yeah.
Got laundry.
Exactly. When our minds are elsewhere,
Mhm.
right? And our conscious awareness is out here, either in how we're performing or how they're performing, or this is, like when we get into that vulnerable state
Mhm.
and we go inside of ourselves, we're totally in. And I compare this state to being like a seed. A seed has to go down in order to really grow roots. It
Mhm.
can't grow roots hanging in the tree. So it has to go down, and we have to go down for our transformation to happen.
Right.
And so, be that meditation, be that hypnosis, be that sex. There may be other things I haven't yet discovered, but those three things all have that pattern. And that's why they're so transforming.
Mhm.
That's why they're so powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking dance. Some people use plant medicine. What I'm feeling is gratitude because there are numerous ways that God can heal us. And just need to choose one or two or five and what works for this particular time. One thing I focused on my retreat was were all of the different ways that we can let go, that we can let go, open so that we can then receive. And I keep coming up with more and more. I was holding on to something in my lower back, and life being busy, I didn't take the time to do my own thought work or my yoga, and ended up collapsing on the laundry room floor and needing a practitioner, because sometimes you need a practitioner, somebody to help you through to open, like a hypnotherapist, like a counselor, like a uh, chiropractor. And he cracked that one spot, and boom, I felt the release and tears came that, and I didn't even have a specific event. I just knew that it had released and I was grateful for it. Because sometimes we go digging through the garbage when we don't really even need to. We've already learned the lesson and we can just let it go already. And dance can do really well with that, intercourse, that so many things, right? We just have to be, like you said, there's a theme here. Release the rigidity and be open to the penetration that's coming in. And you check in with that inner compass all
Right.
the time. We check in. I do find a lot of people with religious upbringings, we have this just innate desire to always choose the right. And so it we become crippled in making choices and not wanting to make the wrong choice. However, if you look through your life and you make a wrong choice, aren't we always navigating back? Something we learn something over here. We learn what not to do, and maybe that got us a.
We learn what we don't want.
Yeah, yeah, we grow from every mistake, and then so trusting that, oh, well, if this is the wrong choice, it's gonna bring me back to the right choice eventually anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And yes, there is that crippling kind of anxiety about doing the wrong thing. And that's, I mean, that's if we have, the parenting that we received when we were young, or I mean, we're taught it in school, right?
Yeah.
Like everything in our society goes back to performance, performance, performance.
Mhm.
And your success depends on your performance. And it's written into our programming.
Yeah. Yeah. But we can
Being
change
able to
that.
let go of that. Oh yeah, being able
And
to let
that
go.
is what I want people to take away from hypnotherapy is that you, you have the power to change.
Yes.
You know exactly what's right for your mind and your body better than any doctor, mother, spouse, anybody. It's you and your internal compass is connecting with God or however you see that higher power for sure. Um, now, I could just talk to you for hours, and I'm so excited for Ask a Hypnotherapist panel. You're going to be so fun to talk to and with, and but before I let you go, is there a brief story? Because I always like to hear success stories. Is there a client that sticks out that's just going, ding, yes, oh my gosh, this was crazy and this happened? What would you like to share with us?
Gosh, I'd love to share that. So when I very first graduated, I connected with a client. Actually, she's overseas. And she has stuck with me, and she has really just, she's navigated with me all my own steps as I've helped her navigate hers. So she was with me when I just did traditional hypnotherapy. And then I went through a phase where I studied with a mentor, and learned some really valuable principles, and script hypnotherapy. And then I afterwards have become master trained in NLP and timeline therapy both. So she's really been there through all of these phases, and she's been my guinea pig. So when I first met her, she was very timid. She was struggling. She had a history of trauma, and she had been in a car accident about a year before. And the result of the car accident was that she was just constantly triggered, couldn't calm down. Like her whole system was just
Caught
constantly
fight or flight.
moving. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we started working together. She had a job that she despised and was treated badly by her boss. She just didn't like it there. And she was considering stepping out and doing something new and different. Like on her own, becoming an entrepreneur, which and really, I mean, here that's a big thing. In the country she's from, not so much. Like this was a massively huge, beautiful thing for her. So over the time we worked together, she decided to go back to school. To finish school, she became a counselor, and she actually graduated top of her class, even though she couldn't read. She was so in fight or flight that she couldn't focus. Right. And so we toned that down. We got her to a place. She graduated top of her class. She's now an entrepreneur. She texted me the other day. She's like, she's beta testing my course.
Okay.
She's in there, just there to give me feedback, and because she's been there for all the steps, right? And she says, my calendar's just booked with clients. And I messaged her back, and I was like, you're rocking it, girl. Like, you are so rocking this thing. I see her on the news.
Oh,
She'll post things on her Facebook, and she's on the news. She's a counselor. And even the idea of counseling in the country that she's from is a new idea, right? It's not something that's been fully embraced like it has here. So she's really being a pioneer. So
wow.
to go from this very timid, still living in her own home, with her parents, she has gone out and done some magical, wonderful things in her life. And then she kind of hit a wall, and all of her old beliefs just came. 2020 happened, and everything just came like falling back on her. And that's when we met. So to go from where she was, still living in her parents' home and not fully financially independent, and then stepping into entrepreneurship and just all the pieces about her individually, right? It's been amazing. It's been super amazing. Like she and I are soul sisters and always will be. And I feel like we're always going to be in each other's journeys, but it's just so cool to be able to see from the outside all the steps that she's making and validate that back to her. Like, oh my gosh, did I
Yeah.
just see you on the news?
How fun.
I'm
That is awesome. It's so fun when you get to
so
see the
proud of her.
progression over time and
Mhm,
those clients become your dearest friends. I,
mhm.
that's yeah, I've got those too, and it's just so heartwarming because you didn't do the work. Amy Brooke was
No,
the guide, the flow. Let's come on, let's go get in the flow, and I'll show you the way. And she did the work, and so good for her.
absolutely. In
That's
fact,
awesome.
we did a little thing together. We had a conversation together, that was a recorded conversation, and she brought her book of insights that
Mm.
she got during our sessions together and in between
Oh,
our sessions together. She had a full notebook. She was
oh
definitely
wow.
doing the work.
Love it, love it, love it. Gosh, thank you so much for taking your time to be with
Oh,
me today, Amy Brooke. And um, in the show notes underneath, you guys can go in and see where you can connect with Amy Brooke and find out about the course, find out about how to do a session with her or cheer her on as we do Ask a Hypnotherapist. You can show up live on either Facebook or YouTube and ask the questions and pick our brains, and we'll just dive in deeper. I am excited to explore more about sexuality specifically with women because so many people are stunted there. Good girls that feel like they, just everything we already said. So come and join us on our journey as we grow. And if you had one piece of advice to anybody listening right now, what would be the one piece that would help them move forward?
breathe.
Yes,
We
thank you for the
we
reminder.
do not give it the credit it deserves.
Amen. You watch the babies know how to do it. It's innate and natural for us to breathe into the belly, which triggers that vagal nerve and helps us all calm down. So, everybody, right now, if you're not doing it, put your hands on your stomach and take a nice deep breath and come back to center as easy as that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your light and your beauty and your courage and moving forward in life. And I just am so excited to watch your journey and see where it leads.
I appreciate
Um,
that. Thank you.
for sure. And with that, we will say goodbye until another day. And thank you so much for everybody for watching. Like and subscribe. YouTube, Facebook, how
I have a YouTube channel with a couple of things on it that I'm just building as I go. I have a Facebook group that I've just started. It's brand new. It's called the Reclamation Initiative. I also have a website, and the video that's on my website is super powerful. If anyone, I actually talk about the idea of a woman's body being akin to a temple, which I came up with on my own. I've never heard it anywhere else. And when you brought that up, I was like, well, I knew someone else had to come up with this idea, right? So yeah, there's a video on there that's really, really powerful that kind of introduces the work that I do. Blessings, amybrooke.com.
beautiful. Well, thank you. Well, I'm going to go and check you out and join your group. And thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And go and subscribe to her channel and mine. So I know it's like you have to get to the 100, and I don't know what happens after that. I'm finally over 100, and I'll have to. I don't worry about any of this. I just share, and if you like it, good for that.
I love that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
Oh, you as well.
Blessings, everyone.